Today on Real Talk.
In today's economic crisis, with foreclosure rates at an all-time high and the unemployment rate rising, the sports industry continues to remain strong, estimated at a value of $414 billion. Further evidence is the increase in the number of large stadiums being built. Additionally, TV viewership of sporting events is at an all-time high. Also, there's an estimated 41 million American kids involved in youth competitive sports around America. Whether you're a sports fan or not, everyone in the US of A can recognize the enormous impact of sports here in America.
So we're coming to you with real stories, real issues,
and real views from here in the USA.
Real stories.
Urban life in America is very diverse, fast-paced.
You telling me the prayers of those people, those among our people, weren't accepted? Do you really want to monopolize salvation?
This is Real Talk USA.
Assalamu alaikum and a big welcome to the show. I'm your host Ghalib Khan and you're watching the special US edition of Real Talk. We're here in Washington today. Now, one thing that's really big here in the US is sports, and that's what we're going to be looking at today, the whole sports industry. We've got a lineup of expert panels that we're going to be discussing and talking to, and also we've got our special audience here in the studio as well. There's a whole range of issues that are linked to the sports industry. Has it become too commercial? We see athletes being paid more and more. And isn't sports just about having fun? It seems that today more people are actually taking part in sports, but what about having an active lifestyle on a day-to-day basis? That's what we're going to be looking at today. Now, obviously, I've just mentioned we've got our panel here in the studio, and I'm just going to introduce them for you. First of all, I'm joined by Usman Jamil. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Real Talk. Usman is the basketball coach at the Northwest High School in Maryland. Welcome to Real Talk.
Thank you.
Next, I'm joined by Kush Malhotra, and he's a former sports writer for Virginia Tech University. Welcome to Real Talk. It's great to have you here today. And finally, I'm joined by Hibdullah Iqbal Saab, who's the National Sports Director for Majlis Khudam Al-Ahmadiyya here in the USA. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Real Talk. So that's our expert panel that we've got today, and also we've joined by this audience who I can see are keen and eager to add in their points of view. Now, before we get going, as usual, we've got our video report outside, and today we actually sent a team down to Usman's school over there to see what the issue there is with sports. We've spoken to some of the players there as well, and just the general public. So let's take a listen to the word on the street.
We're here at Northwest High School in Germantown, Maryland, and we're discussing the issue of sports in America. It's a big thing, very popular. Everybody's doing it. Is it good? Is it bad? That's what we're here to find out today. I have with me Usman Jamil, the coach of the basketball team, and we're going to discuss the issues of whether it's positive and the negatives of sports in America.
Let me introduce you to one of our players and one of our parents here at Northwest High School. How you doing? Mr. Lipschultz, and this is Josh Lipschultz, first-year player here with the basketball program, but I've heard Josh has played football here at Northwest as well?
Yes, he has.
And Mr. Lipschultz, how involved have you been in sports with Josh?
Josh started playing basketball in around the 4th grade, and I've been very involved. I mean, I'm a single dad, so I make it a point to always be at his games and just be there, support him, support the teams.
Now, Josh, that support your dad speaks of, how impactful has that support been?
It helps me a lot because I feel like I know there's somebody there that's like helping me out and there with me when I play and stuff.
Is he somewhat of a role model when it comes to him playing sports as a youngster? Has that impacted you in any way?
Yeah, because normally with dads that play sports, they tend to get their kids into sports too, and it kind of helps me a little bit.
And Mr. Lipschultz, how have you seen the impact in Josh, from a young age playing in 4th grade all the way up to now? You're a sophomore in high school, right, Josh?
Yeah.
Sophomore in high school. Have you seen any character differences in him growing, playing all these team sports?
You know, he's developed, you know, a lot as, you know, from growing up. I've seen him, you know, develop into, you know, a teenager, but he's, you know, the camaraderie's great. You know, he's made a lot of great friends, and the team building has just been, you know, a great experience for him. I mean, obviously, you know, as a parent, you know, we want to make sure our kids, you know, do well, they focus, do well in school, you know, desire and hope to go to college, not hang around with, you know, maybe kids who weren't maybe such a great influence.
Josh, a little on to you for a second. The commitment, having playing, just got done with your with your fall sport in football, and now you're committed to a basketball season. How much of a commitment does playing high school sports take on you? Do you feel like it impacts your academics at all?
It kind of impacts it a little bit because I get home around 6:30, 7 o'clock, and I have to do my homework still, and it's kind of tough.
It's kind of tough to manage academics and sports. So do you feel like it's worth it, though, at the end of the day, after weighing those balances?
Yeah, it's worth it. I think it's worth it.
We're here with Ramel Davidson, a junior at Northwest High School. He's currently playing on the varsity team. I had the pleasure of coaching Ramel for 2 years here at Northwest High School. Ramel, you just comment on what basketball means to you, playing basketball, as basketball shaped your life. Just any comments on the game of basketball?
Keeps me out of trouble. I love the game, and nothing really else.
You say it keeps you out of trouble. Playing a winter sport like basketball, it basically takes 3 to 4 months out of the year, just the season part. How do you feel like those 3 to 4 months and the commitment to the varsity basketball team? How hard is that commitment?
It's pretty hard. I like to go to parties with my friends, but it's hard. It just takes up my time. But after, I'm good.
So you feel like during the season you got to step away from those parties and the social life with your friends. Do you feel like you have to sacrifice that for the betterment of the team, or do you find yourself sacrificing, or can you balance with both?
I could kind of balance with both, but it's like, I don't know. Sometimes I could go, but most of the time I'm too tired. Yeah.
And do you have career aspirations of maybe playing professional or at the college level?
College level at most, but if I could make it to the NBA, of course I'm going to take that ticket.
And has this been a lifetime dream of yours, playing the NBA, or ever since a little kid, or?
Mm-hmm. Pretty much ever since I was a little kid.
Can you tell the viewers how much work does it take to play at the professional level? How often do you work on your game? How many hours a day?
Pretty much, like almost anytime I could get the chance to go play, but it takes hours of hard work, consideration. Yeah, you gotta be dedicated to it.
Have you seen the improvement in your game over the years, just in high school with it?
Yes, I've been working by myself and with coaches as much as I can just to get better, but you know.
How competitive is here in America, do you feel like, basketball and getting a college scholarship?
It's very competitive. It's like 1 in a million type thing.
But you still have that drive, it seems like.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're here with Jacoy, who's a member of the varsity team here at Northwest High School boys basketball program. Jacoy, how would you say that playing sports at the high school level had an impact in your life?
Well, it kept me out of trouble, you know, kept me occupied doing stuff. When you do something you love, you have a passion for it, always keeps you focused, and you never want to slip up on it. So, like, I would say it had a good impact on my life so far.
Jacoy, growing up, did you find yourself playing a lot of sports or just basketball?
Mainly just basketball. I tried football once, but it didn't really work out for me because I didn't have a passion for it. But then when I started playing basketball, I started liking it. I started playing basketball when I was little. My mother taught me how to play basketball, really. You know, taught me how to shoot and all that, the basic stuff. And then I started playing my friends around and stuff.
You say your mother taught you the game and was involved with you. How early of an age was your mother involved, and how much did she stress sports at a young age?
I was around 10. She taught me how to shoot. She was always there for me, kept my head up, you know, and not getting mad after every.
Did you play in youth leagues when you were at a young age? Montgomery County Rec or any youth leagues?
Tried to, but family struggling, never had enough money to, but tried to do everything I could, church leagues, everything. any opportunity I had, I took.
You mentioned your family is struggling. We are going through some tough times, and here in America, we have a lot of families that struggle. I know personally, having coached you, I'm well aware of this. Was there any supports available with the public school where it helped you financially, or through basketball teams that you've played on before that helped you get by?
Yeah, of course. We always had something. When it came to basketball, I always made sure that I was on top of things, and it stayed fluent with me. So whatever opportunity I had to get is, scholarships, all other stuff like that, I'll go for it.
And how's the game of basketball helped with those struggles? Obviously, financial struggle is always a stress of adversity. Just growing up, like you said, there's always those lures of smoking drugs or hanging out with the wrong crowd. How has sports helped you balance that out, or has it?
Because it kept me focused, because I know that when I damage my body and when I'm doing stuff to my body that's not right for me, or trying to be cool, whatever, it didn't help me at all. Whatever I could to do to help me try to get better at basketball, I would do that. If it was drugs, that's not the way for me, because drugs I knew that was going to hurt me, and alcohol and all that stuff, partying. No, I just stayed focused with grades and basketball so I can keep on doing the things I'm doing right now.
Do you plan on playing professionally? Do you have any desires?
Always have a big dream playing professional, Everyone has that dream. If you really love basketball, everyone wants to be the next Jordan, maybe even above the next Jordan.
Can I ask you, let's just say the what if for a second. What if you don't make it professionally? Do you still feel like, putting all this time, you work hard. I know you personally, Jacoby, we've worked hard together on your skills. But let's just say, what if you don't make it professionally? How much of a adversity or adverse effect are you going to feel like you wasted a lot of your time? Or do you feel like you've benefited from basketball to this point? Do you feel like it'll help you in life in other ways?
I mean, if I didn't make it, I'd be hurt for a little while, and then I'd suck it up. Got to get a life together. Think about all the good things that basketball has brought for me, and not the negative things. I mean, if you fall, try again. That's all I got to say,
We're here with some of the Northwest JV basketball team in what we call the locker room for some locker room talk. Derek, what grade are you in, Derek?
Ninth.
Ninth grade. How many years have you been playing basketball?
About 9 years now.
9 years.
Since I was 5.
And I hear you also play football?
Yes, sir.
Can I get a raise of hand who played both basketball and football here at Northwest High School? All right. Josh, how much of a commitment is it playing basketball and football at a high school?
It's a big commitment. It's your life, basically.
You say it's your life. Are you able to balance academics and playing sports?
Yes, I do my work before I play sports.
Now, do you feel like playing sports helps you with academics?
Yes, because it makes me manage my time.
All right. And how many years have you been playing sports?
Since 4 or 5, just like Derek.
Have your parents been supporting you?
Yeah, all the way.
Luke, I think your dad's a coach as well, right?
Yeah.
How's that help you, or how did that help you growing up playing sports, having a dad that actually coaches sports?
Well, he just taught me like extra at home and stuff. So.
Do you feel like you had an advantage over other kids having a dad as a coach?
No, because I don't know. He didn't like go into like deep, whatever, like all this stuff.
Did he push you as a youngster?
Yeah. Not like too much like.
Joey, you play a couple sports here at Northwest High School. What are the other sports other than basketball that you play?
I do cross country and tennis.
So you're pretty much playing every season here at Northwest High School during the school season?
Yes, sir, I am.
How's that commitment, playing sports every year? How do you balance academics and sports?
Sometimes I have to do homework late at night, but most of the time I try to do it before my sports.
I won't put you on the spot, but am I right to say that you're an honor roll student here at Northwest High School?
That would be correct. I am.
Alex, how is playing for a high school and dealing with other commitments like family and stuff? How is that a struggle?
Yeah, it's a struggle because you have so many other commitments like school and family, but you still have to play your sport and come and practice.
How does that camaraderie between the team? Do you feel like you're putting your teammates down or your family down when you give one precedence over the other?
I feel like I'm putting whichever one I'm not going to down.
As a high school student, which one would you prefer if you had a choice?
Sports.
And your team?
Yeah.
Good answer. Well, that's it from the locker room here at Northwest High School. Thanks a lot, fellas.
So we've heard from parents, coaches, and players. Now let's take a look back at the panel and see what they have to say.
Okay, so that was the word on the street, and let's get the discussion going for today. Osman, let me turn to you first. For people watching all over the world, can you just give an example of what the importance of sport here in the US? Why is it different from in other countries?
Sure. Here in the U.S., sport is really part of the culture. A lot of the day is gathered up. Monday Night Football. We've got sports is just really embedded within the culture. It's really stressed upon the youth. As a high school teacher and a high school basketball coach, I firsthand witnessed. I had great numbers just last week. We had a tryout for my team. I had numbers of 60 children try out, which for a team that was going to only make up 14 players that we ended up taking. So I can just give you some gauge of some type of an interest of sports. It's the government really pushes sports. We've got youth teams that play competitively, starting at the age of 7 or 8 years old.
Okay. So even from a young age,
at a young age, it's very organized and competitive. So it's quite stressed.
Fantastic. Kush, turning to you, I mean, would you agree with that? Is that something that's ingrained in youngsters from a really early age over here?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I started playing maybe 4th or 5th grade. Started playing basketball, and now you see it's getting even younger and younger. Obviously, given the amount of money involved with sports and the potential for making tons of money, as well as outside of going professional from an educational perspective, getting free higher education, there's definitely a push to get involved with sports and as a potential job later on. And then obviously there's tons of physical benefits, there's social benefits. It's a really good outlet, positive outlet to have.
Okay, Hivdat, turning to you. I mean, what is it about sports that makes it ingrained in society? Looking at it from a social perspective, everything is geared towards sports, it seems, over here.
Definitely. I think sports is part of life. Sports brings out the best in one. It brings out the qualities that help you along in life. So that's why sports, especially from youngsters, their parents sort of use sports as a way to get the kids involved. Get them acclimated with socially as well as with one another, with their peers. And eventually that translates into life, and they can carry those skills that they learned through sports down in their careers as whatever profession they choose.
I mean, there seems to be a bit of a contradiction here, though, because on the one hand, we say that people over here in the US are really sports conscious, but at the same time, all over the world, it seems that people are trying to get people more active. And there seems to be one aspect where people love sports, but at the same time, they're not actually playing sports as much as maybe they used to. Why do you think that trend is happening at the moment?
There's just so much other things that are available to youth and the general public and overall. The advent of video games, TV, satellite. There's so many other things that are available that the youth are directing their focus towards that, rather than going out and playing. Like in our younger days, to meet new people, we would go out into the playgrounds and play basketball, play football. But nowadays, you can go on the internet and chat with your friends. You don't need to be there to specifically meet with your friends, especially with video games. Video games, I don't think sports is shifting from the emphasis on sports, but I think most of the general public looks at sports, watches sports. They might play sports on video games.
Yeah.
But as far as getting out and playing, I think that's where the decline is.
Osman, I mean, if that's the trend, how do we stop that from happening?
Just to piggyback off what Hibby was saying, I've noticed as a high school coach, at a time when me and Hibby growing up being a similar age, playgrounds were packed. Part of our culture coming home from school was doing our homework and then getting out into the playgrounds, playing competitively different types of sports, be it football, basketball. We grew up in an age that happened. A lot of the players I coach today or teach. The culture has changed, like Hibby was saying. It's a digital age where there's a lot of distractions now. Kids just have other outlets to do, which has taken away what I've seen from a coach's perspective, even the competitiveness or the true love for the game. There's a lot of sport has become almost commercialized to an extent. It's more me than it is wanting to do it.
That's an interesting point. Kush, would you agree with that? The sports become too commercialized?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at the big thing in this past summer was the whole LeBron James thing. And I grew up. I'm almost 30. I grew up in the age of Jordan and all these guys that were ultra competitive, and they basically wanted to just dominate anybody they played, and now you have a new generation of athletes that's basically, not necessarily to their fault, but they've been catered to, and it's really about developing, it's not only about winning, it's about, developing their brand, about, marketing themselves, which I can understand and I can respect, but at the heart core of all sport is competition, is, fighting and working to win, and doing it respectfully, and there's, showing respect to the people you beat, and I think there's a lot of core values that are still there, but I definitely kind of, like these two gentlemen said, our culture is changing a little bit, so
we'll come back to the money involved in sports a bit later on. We've got an audience here, and I want to get their points of view in. As youngsters, how do you find sports, and just generally looking at the whole sports culture in the US, what do you think the situation is here? On the one hand, it seems that people love sports, but on the same side, maybe they're not playing enough as maybe they should. They're not being as active. Let's get some points of view. What do you think? Mike, do you want to start us off?
Sure. As a former football player at my local high school, I remember that it was just an interest of mine. I started at 6th grade. I had always watched it on TV, and I was saying, hey, let me give it a try. Of course, it took a little bit of a learning curve, but I really enjoyed it. At that level, it's just you play for the fun of the game.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that a lot. Obviously, I don't play in college now, but I think that it helped me a lot because now I'm more focused on things like academics, and my focus was changed, but it really taught me to get a balance, and there's a lot of different things. Now I know the meaning of hard work and where it pays off.
So you're saying sports in your life has been a positive impact and it's taught you a lot of good benefits?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Turning back to the panel, on the one hand, the media has been essential for sports to get it out to a wider audience. As Kush, as a writer, obviously you used to work for a magazine, but the people are writing that people see that work all over the world, and that's their access to sport. So surely isn't the media a good thing? Because then actually, if people watch sport all over the world, doesn't that actually inspire them to actually go out and play?
You would hope so. Definitely. I think the media plays a crucial role in all aspects of society. It's a mechanism to disseminate information. But again, it's like anything else. It's on the individual to choose. Take what they want from what they read and what they see on TV. Do they want to see guys that are great athletes and how hard they work and implement those kind of aspects in their own life, or do they just want to kind of watch these people and admire them from afar? So I think it's a balance. I definitely think the media plays a great role.
My take, just like Kush said, the media almost it helps and it hurts it. From a coach's perspective, it helps it and it sells the sport. And like we were talking about earlier, we want the youth to be involved in sports. So it sells it, it popularizes it. If you look at the NBA game, it highlights superstars. These are somewhat role models for some of our youth. The part where I feel like it hurts it also highlights individualism. Okay. It highlights certain traits of, sometimes which could lead to greed. It highlights sometimes selfishness. The NBA, I think, really markets towards superstars and individual accolades, which coming from a coach's perspective and teaching my youth basketball team, kids, life lessons as well as sports, I really preach selflessness and unselfish play.
And working for
sometimes,
the team.
Right, and sometimes because of the media, I find myself having challenges because the media is over here hyping individualism, who scored the most points, and while I'm trying to...
So you're actually having to counteract that.
Right, counteract the media almost to a certain extent.
Hibby, what would you like to add to that?
We have to look at the goal of the media. The media wants you to watch. They want to bring you in as an audience member. So their goal is to promote the players, promote the brand. So they take away, they might not focus as much as getting people out and about and taking part in these sports, because they want you to sit in front of your TV. They want you to sit in front of your video games and play. And that's how they make their money. So the underlying issue here is the money. The media wants you to do what they, what helps them.
Instead of just sat here blaming the media, how do we actually counteract that? Let's get some practical efforts. What can we do to counteract that wave of stuff that's coming from the media and this influence? Because how can we actually encourage people to do more?
One thing, I don't necessarily, I think it all goes back to what you personally choose to do. I think Hibby's point was right on that, the media has an objective, it has a purpose that it's trying to fulfill, and it's kind of on the individual to pick and choose what they want. I think that what we can take away as sports fans, we're all fans of some sort of sport, but look at what it takes to play at a high level, like the traits that it takes, the dedication, the discipline. These are all traits that every individual, regardless of background, of faith, I mean, you can implement that in your own life. I mean, so I think there's things that we can take away that are maybe behind the scenes. I think the fluff kind of gets portrayed, who scored the most points, who had the best dunk, who threw the most touchdowns, but there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that you can take away from it.
I feel like it always starts in the family, it starts in the home. And over here in the Western America, because sport is so culturalized, you do find a lot of parents that have played sports before. So it really starts with, parenting and them setting that positive role model, them explaining to the child the real reasons you're playing the sport and how you can benefit from the sport or ways to act, how sport can help build your character. And then from the parents, then it ends up to, the coaching level. There's youth sports, you can volunteer, become a youth coach. At the youth level, then, I'm coaching at the high school level, and then coaches have a great impact and great influence on our youth.
I mean, in terms of parenting that you just touched on, then do you actually find that some parents actually, don't want to encourage their child to go into sports because maybe they don't see it as really, academic and something that's self-value?
I say unfortunately because I feel like, our audience probably can relate to this. I know I could relate to it. With having East Asian parents, I had some parents who were a little concerned because I was taking sports very seriously at a young age. Right. They encouraged it, but they didn't want me to be excessive in it, which I respected. And I feel like, I'm sure all the panel members can relate to that. So yes, you have to strike that fine balance between taking sports too seriously.
Yeah, I think this is an issue I've talked a lot about, with friends, and I think it's a generational thing. I think all of our parents came over here, with a different set of values, and our challenge as that first generation here is to kind of navigate the old country versus the new country and find that balance. And I think as we get older and we become parents, then we'll understand that obviously education is very important. We need to be educated. We need to learn as much as we can to be successful. But there's other things like sports, which are a great way to meet people, to make friends, to make friends that with outside of your comfort zone or your culture, your background. And I think as we get older, we can kind of push that in our
the reason I
families.
mention it is because when you speak to youngsters these days, everyone wants to grow up to be a basketball player, to be a football player, soccer player, whatever. But then how many of them actually make it? And it's not that many. So why is that? I often think to myself, why is that? Why do they not push themselves? Is it because it's too difficult, or maybe they are getting pressures from home? What do you think of the reasons?
For one, it's very competitive. I mean, we're talking about like you said, a large amount of youth want to play professional sports. And like going back to the media, it's glorified. It's a glorified occupation. So it's very competitive. And yes, to get to that level, you're competing against some of the best to get there. So yes, it's very demanding. I think a lot of the youth don't realize how demanding it is. And as being a high school coach, sometimes I do have to give them a reality check. This is where you stand. This is how hard you would have to work to attain that. Is it worth it? Sometimes they have to have private sit-down discussions and let kids know, is it worth it putting in this much effort to get there? And realistically, you may not get there. So the percentages, I know, Hibby, we were talking about that before. What are the percentages on the amount of?
I think the percentages of college athletes that make to the pros are about less than 2%.
Really?
So, those numbers aren't with you, but that's the same thing with any other profession. A doctor, not everyone is cut out to be a doctor. Not everyone is cut out to be a lawyer. Everyone has to find their own niche, find their own avenue to where they want to go. And that's the same with sports as well. Everyone won't become an athlete, a professional athlete, so they need to have a backup plan, keep everything in perspective overall, for
Yeah,
your
you
life.
need something to fall back on as well. I mean, are there examples actually of people who have pushed themselves for sports and then have had to stop maybe? I mean, do you know any personal experiences where people have actually said, you know what, maybe I'm not good enough to make it and I need something else to fall back on?
I look at myself when I first think about that. Like a youth, I had career aspirations of playing professional basketball. And it came a point in a time where I did try to weigh that option. Should I take the gamble? Not that I could play it, maybe not an American level. I felt like I did have a chance, and I did have an opportunity to play overseas in Europe. I had to weigh the pros and cons at that time. Is it worth, there's not very much money to be made overseas playing professional basketball. Do I have what it takes to invest in a career in this? Where, I weighed it, I debated it, I prayed it out, and realistically, it's tough. Can you really dedicate that time and energy? Is it worth it? Athletically, I'm not gifted. By God, I tell this to a lot of my players who are tossing between those options. You got to be at a certain athletic advantage over the competition, and if you're not there, your body can only push it to so much. So it is a tough call, and
I want to turn to you and your experience. Within the Khuddam structure here, you're in charge of the sports on a national level. How have you find it in terms of actually encouraging people to engage in sports? Are they willing to do it, or maybe they're not really that they don't really want to get involved, or what's it been like?
No, I think they're absolutely willing to get involved. I think what you have to do is put a structure in place where you have an organization and you have a plan whereby people can get involved. What we've done in the United States is incorporated Brotherhood Through Fitness campaign, where each of our local chapters gets together on a monthly basis to have one sports activity.
Right.
And it includes everyone. So with that, not only do you get everyone together, build the bonds of brotherhood, but you also take part in physical fitness activity and you promote health and amongst the membership. So I think to answer your question, people are ready to get involved. They just need the means. And I think if we can help them guide them to that area, we should be okay.
Okay. All right. So let's get some more views from the audience members. You've heard what the panel are talking about here. And do you agree with what they're saying? Is it easy to get involved in sports? How have you found it? Let's get some points of view from over here. Do you want to hand it over to someone? Anyone want to add something? How do you find it? Are you at college at the moment? Or?
Yes. Currently, I'm going to university second year. I think if you really sports is something. Being I moved from Pakistan, some years back, and the thing is, first thing I realized, what really connected me to the United States was sports.
Right. Okay.
So first thing I learned nothing about anything, just sports. So the first thing that really got connected was football, or American football, we call it. Over there, it's football. You really don't play with your foot, but it's called football. We had an argument earlier, but.
Yeah, I've had to learn the difference between football and soccer over here.
So
I'm getting used to it, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's one thing. But, to the point that at a young age, and the amount of, everywhere you go, you just talk about sports. You're talking about your fantasy leagues, whatever, points and stuff like that.
It's a great way to actually connect with people, isn't it? Because then you have something in common with them.
Definitely. It's something in common. You play, you go out every Sunday, you play with your friends. You get to see you get to see new people, you meet new people. You create a bond between them. So it really helps you with your social life as well. Okay. And you get, make new friends and hang out later.
All right, fantastic. Let's get some more points of view. Anyone else want to add something to this?
Right, when it comes to parents and their kids in sports, I've seen many different types of approaches that parents have taken. One approach is that parents would shun, get their kids to not play sports for the fear of injury, because as especially American football and any other sport on that matter, there's a really big risk of injury. So being a protective parent, they're more hesitant to get their kids involved in sports. They would rather have their kids focus on more productive things in their eyes, such as education. So they would probably focus more on their children to be focused on education. And I've also seen parents that, because being a parent of a person who's involved in sports takes a big commitment for the parents, because in the youth, the parents are the sole responsible for taking their kids to the practices, taking their kids for the games. It's exactly a very big commitment. So. These are the two aspects that I've seen in sports. And
all right, fantastic. Let's get some more points of view. Anyone else want to add something to this? So what's your view in terms of the role between parents and kids in terms of sports and getting them active?
I know going from parents not taking it seriously, I know from my cousin's point of perspective, he plays football and basketball,
right,
and he's very active in that. And I know his parents aren't really too happy about it. But I think parents need to see it from their point of view, how important it is to them and what it does for them. And it also, for them, it builds confidence, and it's where they feel at peace. So I think parents should try to understand it from their point of view, so that maybe they could take it more seriously.
Okay. So maybe parents aren't doing enough to actually connect with the kids and see how important it is for them.
I think that's
valid point of view. Let's get one more point of view from the audience.
Sure. I mean, in my personal perspective, for me, there's two different aspects. There's one person who is extremely active, extremely enthusiastic, and then there's another parenting issue where the kid is not active. But for me, I was super enthusiastic to play football, but the problem that I had was my parents weren't familiar with the sport. They coming from England or Pakistan or familiar with soccer or something else. And we won the regional championship game, which we hadn't done in 10 years in the school's history. But they didn't realize the significance of it. So for me, it was just not like they were they are supportive in a way, but they just didn't understand how significant it was to me and how much I valued it. So
That's a valid point.
it's just understanding.
Moving back to the panel, you've heard a lot of views. What can you take away from that? You think that's relevant to people across the US? Do they feel the same way?
I think before we bash the parents too much, I think we need to think about their perspective. They're coming from overseas. They don't have the same perspective that we do growing up in this Western culture. But one thing that we can stress to them is try to provide them the information. I think we're in a unique situation here in the United States where everything that we do athletically is in line with academics as well. When you play sports in high school,
right,
not only are you playing sports, but you're also getting an education at the same time. There's countries in the world where if you're deemed an athlete, they would pull you out of school and just train you for that specific sport.
Okay.
So you have no recourse if you don't succeed. So I think we need to look at it that way, and we also need to inform our parents that sports isn't all that bad. We're also getting an education at the same time, and that falls upon the athlete, the student as well. To be good in school, don't lose track of other parts of life, so the parents can be more inclined to support you in that role.
I mean, Kush, there's going to be parents watching this program, and I'm sure they're probably thinking, do you know what, my kids enjoy sports. I know they do, but I don't want to push them too far because, I mean, like we'll mention later on in the program, if you're a professional athlete, you can only play for a certain amount of years. Like we said before, only like 2% actually make it. It's very, very risky in that respect. And so parents have to look at the bigger picture. So aren't they right in to do that and actually say, do you know what, make sure you have your education because that's the most important thing?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I was telling these guys, I mean, like, I played basketball my whole life and I was obsessed with it. And till I was 14, I was convinced I was going to play in the NBA. Then I realized that, you're 6 foot power forward who can't dunk is not going to play in the NBA. But, my parents obviously always encouraged that, but they always said, go to school, do well, get good grades, go to college. So again, it's a balancing act. It's about, fostering a child's interest, whether it be sports or whatever it may be, like, encouraging that, but also keeping them focused on the bigger picture, like you said, which comes back to education and hard work. And so, I think it both can be done. And I think, like the point I made before, a lot of it is a generational thing, and us being the first generation to bridge that gap between East and West, when we become that role of parents, we'll understand the importance of sports and, in terms of somebody made the point about confidence and identity, and I mean, there's a lot to that. I mean, I hope that the digital age doesn't completely wipe out that benefit of sports.
Yeah, that'd be a real shame to lose that. Osman, just turning to you, I just want to focus on one point. We're talking about parents obviously see sports as just maybe a recreational thing, but in fact, actually, people use sports to stay away from other sort of negative influences. I mean, if they're regularly training after school or college, that stops them from just hanging about on the street. So, isn't that one of the advantages of sports, maybe?
I think that's a huge advantage, especially with some of the negative influences in society. As a public school teacher, I see a lot of those influences that are out there. A lot of distractions that can take, anybody away from their moralistic, viewpoints. But and sports is a great thing to turn on and lean on. Personally, I know I experienced that, where it also gave me a sense of identity. Being a Muslim raised in a Western society where sports is so much of our culture, but also within sports, there's other cultures. Right. Being a basketball player on a high school team, there's the culture of, being a jock per se. And with being a jock, you're almost, it's almost per se to have a girlfriend or to mingle with the cheerleaders or, to be at parties. It's social status. It's a social status.
Ingrained social status.
So how do you combat that? So there's a lot of pressures that go along with playing sports.
Okay. I hope you just turning to you finally. I mean, we're going to be wrapping up this half of the program, but we're talking about the sort of practices that happen within the sporting world, and as Muslims going into sports teams, sometimes there's practices, I don't know, about sharing locker rooms, there might be issues there, or celebrations after matches, people going out for drinks and things like that. Obviously, a lot of people must face these issues and must be awkward sometimes to be in those situations. What would your advice be maybe to youngsters growing up in that environment?
I don't think you can look at sports independently of your life, day-to-day life. So spiritually, if you have morals that you live by day to day, you can't sway away when you're talking about sports. So the way I think about it is that, is this what my morals would, is this along my morals? If not, then I won't go about those ways. And I think it's fine for you to say, no, my religion or my faith doesn't allow me to drink. And let your teammates know. I think every 99% of the time, you're going to be okay with that. The teammates, your coaches, everyone's going to be okay with that. So as long as you're upfront about it, you don't hide away, you don't shy away from that, the fact of who you are, you should be okay.
That's fantastic. All right, okay, so thanks for your input. Stay with us. We're going to carry on after this. We're going to take a short break, but in part 2 of the program, we're going to be looking at the sports industry as a whole, looking at the sort of the lives and the careers of professional sports players. What kind of pressures are they under, and what are the difficulties that they might face? We're going to take a short break, but stay with us for part 2 of Real Talk.
An interlingual channel promoting interfaith dialogue. Worldwide, live and interactive. On satellite television and the internet. This is MTA International.
And now an important announcement. All broadcasts of MTA International in Urdu, English and MTA Al Arabiya are being transmitted on the internet via web streaming and can be watched anywhere in the world by directly accessing MTA's own website, www.mta.tv. MTA streaming is a service initiated by Hadrat Khalifatul Masih, may Allah strengthen his hand, a few years ago. It is exclusively provided by MTA International for its viewers across the globe. Although this service can be accessed through other Jamaat sites, for the convenience of use and better results, please ensure to use MTA's official website, www.mta.tv. Also, your comments, concerns, any reports of non-availability, and the true user data would reach us quicker and more accurately if you are using www.mta.tv to watch MTA. So whether you're at home, the office, a hotel room, or on the go, remember you can watch MTA 24/7 by logging on to www.mta.tv. That is www.mta.tv.
Welcome back to the show. This is part 2 of the program here in the US, where we'll be discussing sports. We're looking at the whole issue of sports in society, the whole culture of sports. And in this part of the program, we're going to be looking at sports in terms of the actual professional elements of it. Why are so many of the professional people shown in the media in a negative way? What are the pressures they have to deal with? What are some of the issues as well? So that's what we're going to be discussing right about now. Smart Saab, let me just turn to you first of all. We talked about that there's only a few number of people actually make it into the sports world professionally. Right. And do you think there's an element of disappointment for those people who try to do it and then don't actually make it? And how do they deal with that?
I'm sure there is an element of disappointment because if you know, like we were talking about before, you put so much time, energy, dedication, focus on that being your ultimate goal. I'm sure there is some disappointment, but I feel like life does teach you how to face adversity. So in every sport, be it swimming, basketball, football, you're faced with those adversities as you're going through this. So, on one end, yes, there's disappointment, but I do feel like athletes are prepared for disappointment and how to face disappointment. That's one of the pros of playing sports. So yes, there is disappointment, but on the flip end, you learn so much from sports, be it the team environment, and I'm sure, like Hibby was saying, education and sports is hand in hand in the society. So throughout that all, you may be earning a college scholarship, you may be given that opportunity to major in something that a fallback. So right. I think there are fallbacks built in there with sports that they have an opportunity to take it other way.
Okay. I mean, that's when we touched about the money involved. How much money is involved in terms of these players? What are the sort of incomes that they're earning? They're multi-million wages, aren't they?
Right, and we're speaking in America, we're talking multi-millions, and in Europe as well. Soccer players that get paid a phenomenal amount. I've talked to European players that have played professional basketball in Europe. Okay. We might not be talking to millions, but there's still enough to make a decent living. So there's avenues out there to make multi-million dollar contracts.
And do you think they're actually being paid too much? Because I mean, these people are projected to start superstardom. 1 minute they're nothing, the next minute they're the face you see all over the place. And how do they actually learn how to deal with that money and the sort of pressures that come along with that? It's a whole change in lifestyle, isn't it?
It's debatable. You can go back and forth. Are they paid too much? But if you really look at, one perspective to look at it is, an average NFL player only plays 3 to 4 years. So if you look at it that standpoint, he's only got that small window of opportunity to make as much money as he can, and he devoted a whole lifetime, years into specializing in that skill, building his body to be a professional athlete. So he's got that opportune time to make that money. So if you look at it from that perspective, maybe they don't, because you compare it to a doctor who works for 30, 40 years. They're about breaking even if you look at it that way.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, I want to get the audience perspective on this because I think it's quite an emotional point for some people. They see these athletes and they're running around, they're playing sports. I enjoy doing that, but they're getting paid all these millions of dollars for it. So what do you think about that? Are they being paid too much? Should they be paid too much?
I definitely feel that they're being paid too much. I think there needs to be a limit on how much these athletes can make. I agree with the point that they're playing temporarily, so they should try to make as much as they possibly can now because their time period may be only 4 years, 3 years, 5 years. However, at the same time, what type of message are we sending out to our society? I look at it as a student sitting in a school, and how are you going to motivate as a teacher or as a parent that child to go into other careers such as being a lawyer or being a doctor or an engineer or a psychologist or at some other type of field other than sports when that child is looking at the facts that are on the table. And those facts are, I can become a basketball player, a soccer player, or a football player and make millions, or I can become a social worker and only make $30,000 a year.
Right.
So what type of message are we really sending out to the children? So I definitely agree that they're making too much.
Okay, valid point. Can I get a point from you as well? You haven't had a...
On how much they're paid, I think they're worth as much as someone is willing to pay for them. And if you look at it from the point of how much money they actually bring in, the amount of money they're paid compared to the money they're bringing in is not really, it's a very small amount. They should actually be making more money if you base it off that fact
So you're
alone.
saying that the whole sports industry takes up, brings in so much revenue, but these guys aren't actually being paid as much as
the players should be getting more of a cut because they deserve it. They're bringing all that money in.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. The program so far.
Okay, so I definitely think the athletes or sportsmen are making too much money.
Right.
And I think now is something I consider too late to reverse because it's difficult to change it now. But if we were to start everything all afresh, I think we should definitely train the athletes and the sportsmen to know that this is not going to be your job for life. So whatever you're doing, whatever you want to become, you have to know that at some point, it will end. So you have to have a backup plan.
Right.
And if you are going to play for 3 or 4 years and retire, then you have maybe 20 or 25 years ahead of you, and you have to have something doing after that. So they are definitely getting a lot of money, all because of what some people have said. The industries are also capitalizing on.
Okay, some good views. Let's see what the panel think of that. One question I'd like to ask, if football players are only playing for 3 or 4 years, what do they do for the rest of their lives? What do they do after that career? What do they fall back on?
A lot of pro athletes fall back into coaching.
Okay.
And that's an avenue to fall. A lot of them fall into businesses. And I think every NFL, NBA, part of their rookie, call it orientation, they educate them on other ways to, ways to spend their money while players, ways to invest in their money while they're playing, and what to do afterwards. And I think those are, once again, they should be educated and they should be given these avenues. I think that's good that they've started that because there are some horror stories that they've milked everything away.
Yeah. A few things I heard. I definitely agree sports is a business. I definitely agree with this gentleman's point that they're worth as much as somebody's willing to pay them. If you forget about sports, whatever job you work in, how much ever you pay me, no offense, I think I'm going to be underpaid. I'm going to want more money for what I put in, every day. One thing though, and we didn't really talk a lot about this, but there's a lot of socioeconomic issues associated with professional sports. The demographics of the people that make up professional sports, they tend to come from poorer communities. They tend to be, and I don't mean to be stereotypical, but a lesser educated. So the fundamentals there in terms of being able to take advantage of opportunities presented to them as they move up the ranks, as they go to a Division I college and get a free education, it's not really stressed. And a lot of these guys, they're passed along because they can throw a football or dunk a basketball. They're passed along from grade to grade, even though they don't, you could probably attest to this, that they don't have the strong fundamentals educationally. So how do you expect them to take advantage of the opportunities, growing up?
Maybe turning to you, the work that the Jamaat Ahmadiyya does obviously works as a voluntary organization, and I'm sure you've actually set up different sports initiatives in different local areas. And what's the response been to that?
It's been great. We've done multiple tournaments, especially the biggest one that we have, the Missouri International Sports Tournament that we've been holding for the last 7 years. It brings people from all over the country, even internationally, Europe, France, Belgium, all these countries participate in this. And it's a way to get everyone together, number one. And then number two, you build that competitive fire amongst one another. Everyone plays, has a good time, but at the end of the day, they go home as friends. There's no animosity towards one another, especially when you get together in a Jamaat function. So I think that's the great thing about Majlis Khuddam al-Ahmadiyya, that you're always brothers above all.
Right. Okay. Let's turn to the audience again. We're talking here about sports and its role socially as well, reaching out to other people. And what role do you think sports has in reaching out to people maybe from more poorer backgrounds as well?
Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Sani, Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, who actually was the founder of Majlis Khuddam al-Ahmadiyya, he encouraged Khuddam to play sports. He incorporated sports in Khuddam al-Ahmadiyya, and he said that a strong body produces a healthy mind, and that is enough to help the community and the Jamaat in many ways. So as you can see, even in the life history of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Rabi Rahmatullah, he used to play kabaddi, and he was a good player for squash and also tennis. So he was a great spiritual leader, right, and he is a role model for us, and we should look into that.
And one thing, I mean, like Hippie made the point about the fact that these contracts are all public. I mean, think about if you go to a job and everybody knew how much money you made. I mean, it's a level of scrutiny. Not saying we should sympathize with these multi-millionaires, but it's a level of scrutiny that we don't really have to deal with in our day-to-day life. Yeah, if everybody knew how much I made, oh, he was late to work X amount of times, or he was, you know what I mean? Like, so it's everything is because of the age we live in with, I know we've been bashing the media a lot, but, it's this ultra information age. Everything is constantly updating. There's so much out there. There's a different level of scrutiny in today's society that wasn't there.
Okay, I just want to get some more points of view from the audience here as well. I can see a lot of hands raised up. Yeah, what would you like to say?
Yes, just building upon the comment this brother made, if you look at it in a religious viewpoint, sports is a very good way to propagate your religion. I know we haven't talked about religion that much, but if you think about it, by playing sports with different religions and different people of different cultures, that's a really good avenue to propagate your religion.
It breaks down barriers, doesn't it?
Exactly. It breaks the barriers. If anybody has a wrong notion of your particular religion, they see how you conduct yourselves while you play the game. They see, this person is a very good person. Let me see why. What's motivating him to be this type of, such a truthful person or such a, like an honest player. So that's also a good way to, propagate the faith, and, it can bring people towards your faith if, and go from there.
Okay, so fantastic. There's one other sort of moral aspect of sports I really want to touch on, and that's sort of gambling. Because what I found, especially here in the US, gambling is a big part of it. A lot of people, they don't just watch a game, they put money on it as well. Obviously, as Muslims, we don't gamble, but there's other forms of it which are a lot more subtle. I mean, there's an upward trend of using fantasy leagues and stuff like that, and you actually can get money from them. You can actually win things from that. So what are sort of boundaries then? What advice can we give our youngsters?
It's a big part of our corporate environment, our business environment. March Madness is a big money-making, month in March college basketball season where people pool play, and right, a lot of people have the viewpoint where it's it's just $2. I make picks, it's fun. My coworkers are doing it. It's a way, like you talked about, to assimilate into the culture and just the society. But I think Islam is real concrete, and any type of money going into a pot where you can potentially earn money out of it is considered gambling.
We're coming to the end of the program, but I just want to quickly get some more views from the audience. Wrapping up the whole discussion we've had today, what can you take from the discussion today, and how can we actually get that message out to youngsters around the whole country, even around the world who are watching this, about the importance of sports, the benefits of sports as well? Can we have some sort of final closing comment?
The takeaway from today's talk is really that we should exercise moderation in sports, because there's going to be a lot of groups or organizations or the media that are always going to take you away to a certain extreme, whether that's drugs or towards like the Wii system or the Xbox, whatever it is. So moderation in sports, but the goal should always be to excel in it and be the best.
Okay, fantastic. I know that a lot of people wanted to add in some extra points. We're really running out of time. Panel members, just finally, what would be your closing remarks on the discussion that we've had today? What's the most important point that you want viewers to take away from today's show?
Personally, I'd say, more speaking to the parents, I think sports should be encouraged, but it starts in the family, it starts with the parents. Let's really push our children to play sports competitively in a teamwork environment. I think the morals that can be developed from sports are sometimes overlooked, and the negatives are highlighted. But teamwork, self-discipline, leadership, these are all things that as a coach I preach, I get my players to adapt to. I really see them at a young age develop from boys to men, and really I feel like sports, and particularly basketball, is a metaphor for life. I'm really helping them develop and tackle other life challenges that they're going to face, how to persevere.
Okay, Kush, just briefly, how would you wrap up today's discussion?
One of the points somebody made, and I agree with 100%, that I think sports is a great venue to learn about other cultures, learn about other people, especially in this political climate where there's a lot of, polarizing opinions about various people in the world. I think, using sports as a way to, break down a lot of these barriers, a lot of cross-cultural interaction, learning about new people. I mean, it's great for the youth to start young and continue that. Just because you don't make it to the NBA or go play in college, you can continue to play and meet new people and interact with new people, as long as your body allows it. I think it's great.
All right, fantastic. And Hibby, will be your final remarks for today?
Sports, just like life, needs to be kept in perspective, especially when you're taking things to the extreme. Islam teaches us not to go to any extreme one way or another. And sports is the same way. If you find yourself watching sports all day and night, that's too much. So I think what the message is keep a balance, like someone said. Keep everything in perspective, and play sports. The benefits are well documented. There's no surprises. There's nothing that's out there that's a secret. Right. Sports should be played. Activity should be done, but keep it at a moderation level.
Okay, fantastic. I want to thank all of the panel members for your input in the discussion today. Thank you. And thanks to the audience as well. I know a lot of you traveled a long way to be here. It's fantastic to have you in the program. For people watching at home, don't forget you can put in your points of view as well. Our website is www.mta.tv/realtalk. You'll find videos up there as well. You can add in your comments. You can email us, realtalk@mta.tv, and you can follow us on our Twitter as well. We're going to be here in the States for a couple of weeks, and we'll be filming some more programs, and I'm going to get some of the people here to come and present the programs as well. So it's well worth staying tuned and watching in the future. I hope you enjoyed the program today, and I hope you can join us next time again for more Real Talk. But until then, Assalamu alaikum.